Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. There's a lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. Before I get on to that, there's a very special and important message I want to give everybody. And that is that war is a complex bag of emotions, and to demonstrate this, Turkey is siding with Hamas in the war in Gaza, calling them liberators. Now, Turkey is also a member of NATO, which is supposed to be supporting Israel. Israel is, unsurprisingly, not impressed with Turkey. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is critically important. Global instability on a scale we haven't seen in decades is not only possible, but likely. Should the war in Israel expand to others in the Middle East, this instability will not only mean higher gas prices and increased inflation, costs of food, but it could mean serious challenges to the supply chain. Supply chain issues would put pressure on an already stressed out healthcare system. A report prepared for the US Senate found that drug shortages were up 30% last year, including shortages in common antibiotics and antiparasitics. The same US Senate report found that as much as 80 to 90%, listen carefully, of certain key ingredients for common medications are made overseas, leaving not just American but consumers around the world at risk in the event of supply chain issues. My message is simple. Prep with medicines you need. Get extra now so you have an emergency supply. You might be thankful for doing that if you act now. All right, tonight we're going to be talking about reaching out to gain understanding and friendship. And regular on our live stream, Melissa Nieuwoudt is going to be chatting to Megan Ribbens and her teenage children. Please put your questions in the side chat and I will raise those with Melissa and Megan later. By the way, you might not recognize Melissa when you see her, but let's wait and see. Okay, before we get them on, here's a short video about this friendship group. And I should just mention that Nico and Stella, who are Megan's children, will also be joining the discussion. So here comes a short video about the friendship group.
Hello, Melissa. Melissa, it was so good to meet you while you were here in Cape Town over the weekend, and you showed a lot of interest for Friendship Force, so I'm going to send you a bit more info and so that you'll be able to pass it on. And we do hope that one day you can create a club in Gauteng. Friendship Force is an international hosting association. It was started about 46 years ago by President Jimmy Carter and Wayne Smith. And the aim of the association is to promote peace and goodwill across the world. And we certainly do that. We travel as a group, and we go and stay with people in their homes. So that way we learn the culture, and we learn and understand far more. And we do try and be a friend across the world. The mission statement of the association is as follows. As member of the Friendship Force, I recognize that I can make a difference. I recognize that I have a mission. That mission is to be a friend to people of the world. As I embark upon this adventure, I know that others will be watching me. I know that through my example to my fellow citizens, the people of other countries, the cause of friendship and peace can be furthered. And this is what we try and live up to. If anybody wants to see some more about Friendship Force, look at the website www.friendshipforce.org, and that is the international site. And through Melissa, anybody else can get in touch with me also. It's been a great privilege of mine to travel throughout the world for the past 20 years with Friendship Force. I've been to many countries that I would never have gone to on my own. And yes, I'm just very privileged to have been that. Thank you. Goodbye.
All right, there we go. That was a bit about Friendship Force, which we're going to be talking about tonight. And before I get the group on, please remember to register on lovinglifetv.com to be kept informed. Right, let's get the crew on board, and things are never dull when Melissa is around, so here we go. Oh my gosh, we started already.
Oh my goodness. Hi Scott, how are you?
Good, thanks, Melissa.
Can you see us?
No, I can't.
Yeah.
Now I can. There you go. Fantastic. All right, so from left to right we have Michelle. We have Megan. We have Stella. And we have Nico. Now, okay, I'm calling you Michelle because I didn't recognize you because of your hair.
Melissa Slot, Michelle Brunet.
Melissa.
And you lot for weekends.
Melissa, you're in charge tonight, so I'm going to hand over to you. You're going to be chatting to Megan about a whole lot of things, so over to you.
Well, good evening, Scott. I just want to give a shout out. I promised I would, to all my grade 7s tonight who's having the 40-day function tonight. I want to send a shout out to them. I want to send a shout out to all my grade 8s. Stella is part of it. And hope this night will be an inspiration to their photography club class. Do your projects. So let's get started. So Megan, I have had the opportunity and the privilege to meet Megan, and she has crossed my path in life, and I've heard a little slight birdie tweet an accent. So Megan, tell us about your accent and where you're from and what brings you to South Africa.
It's such an honor to join get you all today on this platform. Thank you, Melissa. For
Absolute
inviting
pleasure.
me.
Thank you.
So my accent, they say your accent really gets fixed by the age of 5. So I've tried, but it's just stuck with me. I grew up in the farmlands in the Midwest in America. I didn't know anyone who traveled outside of America, and even outside of like our greater Midwest states. And when we were 21 actually, my husband and I were invited to teach English in Eastern Europe for a summer, doing camps for kids. And we just thought, it just opened our eyes to this bigger world, and we were just fascinated, but not still having an idea that we could live this way. It was like, maybe when we're older, we can volunteer and do this sort of thing. But when we were 22, we were invited to go live and work in Nigeria as dorm parents, and that completely changed our world. And knowing what we do now about brain development, the brain really develops, the adolescent brain develops all the way through the 20s, through 25 and even beyond, some say. And so I think it was such a formative experience because our brains were still really building important structures. So we lived in Nigeria for 8 years, and in 2014 then we moved to South Africa. And while we are American, and that's where all our childhood and formative memories were, my kids have only lived outside of America. So that's a little bit about my accent and where we come in here.
Well, we love America. Over to you, Stella.
Okay. So, hi, I'm Stella. I'm 14. I grew up in Africa, so mostly South Africa. So 9 years here and 4 years in Nigeria. And well, yeah, I was told to say something about my dream. So my dream is to do architecture or some type of building because I've always loved creating things. And if there's anyone in Germany who want to come to your country, so,
Claudia, this is for you.
I have to say, Stella, I can pick up your South African accent.
Well, I've lived here long enough for that to happen. So.
Over to you, Nico.
So I'm Nico. I've lived also in South Africa for 9 years, but I lived in Nigeria for 7 years of my life. So I've had a bit more experience in the country, I guess. I have a huge passion for speaking, public speaking, communicating with different people. And one of my dreams is to be able to connect with a variety of different communities and a variety of different cultures around the world to specifically preach the word of God, but also, just enlighten people about real world problems. That's me.
Fantastic. Now, just before I hand back to Melissa, just before I hand back to Melissa, Megan, are you from the southern states of the United States? Because each area has its own kind of accent.
It definitely does. I grew up in the state of Iowa, and then we lived in Michigan for 4 years, my husband and I. So we stuck in the Midwest. I've never really been to the South. I would love to, though. It fascinates me.
Right. Okay. Back to you, Michelle.
It's gone. All right, so I would just like to extend a question to Nico and Stella, because it's always have been so fascinating looking at youngsters and young adults, young children who becomes young adults. What their viewpoints, challenges, joys, victories of life is, values that they form, values that they embraced, but not only within what is taught from home, but what they have experienced outside the values of their household, living in different countries, meeting different cultures, trying foods and dressing like them. And what is it like? Because you've been so privileged to live abroad. Not many children have that opportunity to experience what you have. So please just tell your fellow students and colleagues, the world out there, what was your challenges, joys, victories, and also values that you just have mastered, embraced, and formed within your journey?
I think that the first big challenge that comes to mind is fitting in. So when we lived in Nigeria, obviously I was like the only white person ever in the group. And at first it was a little bit difficult because I don't know, I had like a conscience that, you know, everyone looked different around me, but I didn't really like feed into it. And then, I don't know, as I became more local, I guess, to the country, then fitting in just became natural. And I don't know, I just kind of blended in, and I never saw myself as a white boy, you know, I just saw myself as one of my friends' friends. So
In Nigeria, we had a deep sense of belonging, didn't we?
Yeah. But then also another challenge is that when you move countries, you know, you kind of have to restart that process all over again. So, you know, finding out the new slang, finding out the new what's wrong, what's good, you know, what's important in people's lives. It's definitely challenging at first, but I don't know, I am a people's person, so I kind of adapted really easily. So yeah. And then going to the values, I think a huge value in our household specifically is community. You know, everywhere we go, we greet people, we try to invite people into our home. You know, hospitality is also a huge value that we carry out in our family. And yeah, that's really something that I want to carry out into my life too, you know, not just staying in an enclosed community as a lot of people do in many different countries. You know, I want to be able to integrate with, just more people and, yeah.
What's that?
It's all right. Speaking of community, we have people who live with us.
She's actually from, where is she from?
She's from South Africa. She lived in Soweto, Mafeking.
Yeah.
So she lived in different places.
she might actually just wave hello as she comes in from Soul Group.
Can I ask you a question?
Can I just say, it sounded like a train. I thought there was a train going through the house.
Nowhere.
There's no sneaking out in our house. Nico, would you say not fitting in has helped you be more welcoming? Like that experience of...
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that you just become more aware when you experience certain things that other people are experiencing. So like if a new kid comes to your school, I'm more inclined to go and greet them, you know, give them a tour of the school. Yeah, definitely. I feel like I see more deeply in a new person.
But Nico, when I first visited your home, there was a gentleman that stayed here. What was his name? I thought it was one of the students, which I was completely had that wrong. But apparently he has relocated to the United States, and he was from Africa, right?
Yes.
Which your family have taken in as a brother?
Yeah.
Of yours?
Yeah. So his name is Ompile. Shout out Ompile.
Hello.
Shadow, come on and say hello.
They thought a train was going by.
Oh, please meet the train.
The train driver.
Come say hi. You have to stand here.
You can sneak.
Sorry, Scott. Like.
Hi.
Hi.
So just say where you're from, quick.
All right. Hi, I'm Tuli. Currently staying here with the Ribbons. I was born in the Northwest. And yeah.
And you're a teacher?
And I'm a teacher. I'm a kindergarten teacher, grade R teacher. 2 years now in that phase, but before that I was teaching fourth grade remedial.
So and I guess we knew Tuli when she was 15 when we first moved here. So now she's this grown adult.
So you family, right?
But as a family, I would say to speak to this value of community, but also our Christian faith. Like we have the privilege of proximity, and in South Africa, with the history of apartheid, that not everyone's proximate to where they need to be, and it takes your time, it takes your resources. And so we said, in our home, we have space. So how can we use our privilege of proximity to schools to support young people? So Tuli has an amazing mom. We would welcome her here too. She just lived too far away. And so we said, Tuli, our house is open to you. And so that's kind of how Tuli came to live with us.
Cool. Well, I'm going to call you the train driver.
Well, he definitely gave you the toot.
That's very
a very big challenge for a lot of like foreigners, but also for us because we've been moving around countries a lot. But I think like knowing where you belong and like where you come from, because when people ask me like, where are you from? And I'm like,
You don't
like,
even know what
I
to
don't know,
say. Yeah.
because I was
Your
born
mom
in
and
America.
dad.
Because I was born in America, but like South Africa is literally all I've ever known, so that would be my home. But I think also what Nico said with like noticing like new kids and stuff, because you know what it was like to be in their shoes.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think a big value of mine is like kindness, because yeah, I mean, yeah, but also hospitality is a huge family thing we've
Yeah.
had. And like going to America, you can see the differences between South Africa, where I come from, and America. So yeah, I think.
And Stella, you just came back from America,
Yeah,
right?
I
So
just
welcome
went there
back.
last week.
Yeah. And Megan, over to you. Tell us a bit about what brings you to South Africa and what is your role? What is the insight that we get through Megan's eyes? Because it's through their vision and eyes.
Yeah.
So what is it that we can experience when we look at you and you tell your story through your eyes? What are you doing in South Africa?
What am I
Please
doing?
tell us about it. Yeah. And your current project.
Yeah, so what I'm doing now stems back to Nigeria, actually. When we moved to Nigeria, the second time, Nico was 1, and so I didn't have a formal position at the time, but I'm blessed to have a husband who always wants me to thrive and use my gifts.
Yeah.
And so he always has a keen eye to look out for ways that I can use my gifts and find a sense of belonging in the community, but also makes way for that, prioritizes supporting me in that. And so when the kids were younger, I would do project-based work, and it was trial and error, figuring out things don't always cross cultures so well. My profession, I was trained as a teacher, and then I'm a certified child life specialist. And in America, I worked in children's hospitals. And our role in children's hospitals is to educate children about what's going to happen. We prepare them so that they know what role they have to play. And then we desensitize to the different instruments and to the textures and the smells and the sounds and the feel. But then we also normalize the hospital environment through play. And we play out, because play is a child's natural language. They learn through play, but it's also, that's their world. And so when you bring play into this foreign, scary environment, it normalizes. There's something they can be familiar with. And so I got to Nigeria, and the hospitals were not ready for play. And I didn't have the time to dedicate to doing child life work in a hospital. So I kept thinking, what is the essence of a child life specialist? And my heart as a teacher. And yeah, it's amazing how God provides. After several but just projects that needed to pause because it wasn't the right timing for them. There wasn't enough support for them.
Yeah.
Someone literally came knocking on my door. It was a friend of a friend, Lydia Idakula, and she knocked on my door and she said, I've had a dream for 4 years of a program called Through Their Eyes. She said, I know we underestimate what children can contribute to society in Nigeria. And I literally want to see what they see through a lens. But I'm not a teacher and I'm not a photographer, but someone told me you could help. Photography was a hobby of mine. I always enjoyed it. I loved looking at pictures. But when we moved to Nigeria, I found the camera helped me to make sense of my world. All of a sudden, I was in this world that was saturated with so much vibrance, from the noise to the smells, to the colors, to the joy. Like it was full on. It was high intensity, and it was hard to take in and make sense of because it was so overwhelming. But I found when I could take pictures, I would reflect on them, and I could make sense of this new world that I was in. And it was a good reflective space for me. So I took this invitation from Lydia, and I was like, oh my word, this combines so much of what I do professionally, but also personally. Let's just experiment. So we started a pilot program. We took a group of kids ages 7 to, I think the oldest was 12, and we taught them 5 different elements of photography, basically just how to see. We wanted them to attune to their environment because, kids, the screen was already becoming a big thing. Kids were walking around with screens. So we wanted them to look back to their environment. And we were experimenting. Would kids take pictures adults would be interested in seeing? Like, would it be worth having an exhibition, or is it just something we do to empower kids? Well, when we held our first exhibition in a little cafe called Salamander Cafe, and we said to, oh my word, people debated the pictures. They were in awe, like, you mean kids think like this? So they took pictures, but then they also added titles, and we knew we were onto something really powerful. So we continued to build programs. One was called I Am Nigeria. We were having kids tell society, what does it mean to be Nigerian? Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? What do you love? Those two things can be the same. They can be very different. And then what do you want to change about your community or your country? Again, just such a powerful response. And it was such a growth point for the kids. I still have kids writing me 11 years later, coming back to me. And yeah, I just thought this is powerful. So I continued to develop it. Now it's more of a psychosocial program, leadership program, where we create space for kids to reflect on different topics. The topics are always guided by whatever organization I'm working by. I don't go in saying, hey, we need to do one on resilience. I wait until the school or the NGO or whoever it is I'm doing the project with says, we're really trying to focus in on this, or we really want to highlight this or strengthen this. We build a program that's contextual, and we reflect through photos, which is a really playful and fun and really powerful way to learn about who you are and about your environment that you're living in.
You know, the beauty about photos is that you can recall that very moment. I mean, that photo can be 40 years old. It can be of you as at Nico's age when he's my age and I'm an old fart. Nico would look at that photo and say, I remember that moment. That's the beauty of photos.
Yeah. Even now, like when we look back at the pictures, they were quite young. Stella was really young when we left, and Nico was grade 2 when we left. Looking back triggers the smells, the sounds, the feeling. It does. You're right. It just triggers a very embodied response when we look back at
And even for adults, it does. Even adults, we do.
Sorry, Michelle, before you go, Melissa, before you go on, I just want to address people watching. We got about 200 people watching on Loving Life TV and about over 30 watching on YouTube, which is our little backup channel. Guys, if you want to ask questions or feel there's something you'd like to put to any one of the group, please just put it in the side chat and I'll give those questions to them later. And don't forget to register on lovinglifetv.com to be kept informed. Back to you, Melissa. I got it right this time.
Thank you. So, Megan, I'm loving what you have shared so far. Just heartfelt palpitations from actually all three of us sitting here that can so relate as teacher and students. Tell me more and tell the listeners out there more about your future visions, dreams, and what a positive impact it could have on both teachers and students currently.
Yeah. So future direction.
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Future goals, dreams, and how your vision will have a positive impact, but not on our children only, but globally. Because I think that over the little bit of time that I've got to know you, just a little bit, you have touched so many hearts, souls, lives hurt, but not only hurt, also vision. And people who have been silenced with, they've got so much to say, but we all have so much to say, but sometimes we are silenced by our own perceptions, by our own driven minds, what we tell ourselves, how we have been hurt and silenced. How can you bring the confidence back of being the voice, voicing your goals, your dreams, but through a vision that the space you create them without a voice to speak through a picture. So how do you do that?
So it's interesting you say that. I have a book right here. Our last program was designed all around this book as our frame. So I found, we'll get to what therapeutic photography versus phototherapy is in just a minute, but therapeutic photography can look different. Some people call it mindful photography. Some people do photo voice. Some people do coaching, like a coaching photography type of thing. They use it in their coaching. How I structure my sessions, it's often framed around a book, and often a children's book, because like children's books for me just sometimes hold the most depth.
Yeah.
And so I just finished a program actually at a shelter. All of the women had experienced domestic violence, had fled their homes, or were homeless. And this book right here was our launching point because it creates a distance. It's outside of us, and yet it connects us to our story. So it's not intimidating. Like Stella doesn't have to think, tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. First, we're just gonna pray. But what it also does is it evokes the imagination.
Yeah.
And we cannot solve problems without imagination.
Yeah.
And what trauma does is it shuts off our access to imagination because we're just in survival mode. So I find story for me is a significant part of my process. So what we did, we read this story. And what triggered it when you were talking was the premises of this story is that in the Fantastic Bureau of Imagination, the cave of untold stories is exploding. And if it continues to explode, all the problems yet to be solved, all the songs yet to be sung, all the parties yet to be planned will just vanish and go away. And so what we did was we read the story, and one of the women was like, oh, I feel like I'm Sparky. So right away, already just identifying with little Sparky, the main character. But then what we did was we said, sitting around this table, we all have untold stories.
Yeah.
We said, why do we have untold stories? And it was amazing what they shared, because I feel shame of what I've done. I feel like people will judge me. Some people said, I don't know how to tell my story, or I don't know where to tell my story, or I don't even know how to start.
Yeah.
So what this does, it creates reflective space to reflect on our lived experiences, and it gives us a starting place to tell our story, and hopefully in the end then start envisioning that future.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question about the future, where I want to take this, I had to pause programming. I had a child who was sick, their older sister, and then I got sick, and then we had COVID. So there were a lot of things that just paused in-person programming. So I used photos in different ways during that time, but I'm just starting programming this year, and it's just so exciting to be reminded of just how effective this approach is to help evoke growth and healing and strengthening sense of self in people. But my big goal would be to grow a team where we have lots of gifts represented in building these programs. But also my biggest dream is to connect kids to kids from different countries, because perspective taking is not natural really for any of us. We're very egocentric, even like all the way to adulthood. We see things, and we can only see things like through my eyes. Like I can only work off the experiences I've had. I can only see from the position I'm standing. But in photography, what we practice, one of our elements is perspective. We teach perspective. We start again with the story. They all saw a cat. And it shows how everyone sees the cat in different ways. Maybe I'll get closer.
Okay, do you want me to hold it for you?
Sure, you can. So they all saw a cat. And you see the child saw a cat. And the dog saw a cat.
No, I just want to. Oh, there we go. Now we got it. Okay, go ahead.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, yeah.
And the fox saw a cat. And you can say the illustrations show us. It goes back to the cat as it is. And then it says, and the fish saw a cat.
Poor fish.
And what is this one, Nico? I can't read upside down.
And the mouse.
And the mouse saw a cat. Terrifying. And the bee saw a cat. And it continues through this story. And we talk about how all of our perspectives are valid and valuable.
Yeah.
But it's important to see. It's important to honor each other's perspectives. But with our camera, what we can do is we can explore different perspectives. And so we practice taking pictures, looking straight, looking up, looking down. The students at Melissa's school last week, they had a task that was outside, inside, inside, outside. So they had to take a picture on the outside of a building or a place or an object, from the inside of that object or space, and then from the inside looking outside of that space. And what this does, just this embodied way of learning, it helps us to see differently, and it invites us to continue to see. Even when I've now put my camera down, my eyes have been invited to see differently just beyond the camera. And so I find it's a powerful way to practice perspective taking, but also now to honor the stories, but also to have a place to tell my story. So when you go global, like if we do a program in South Africa at Alma Mater International School, and we connect with a school in Nairobi, Kenya, or in Oxford, England, where I have a colleague who's starting to do this in his community. I think it'd be so brilliant to do a similar program and then share our perspectives, because we want kids to know there's so much more. So many kids I grew up that way in my community. Then we didn't have internet, but I only knew Iowa. I only knew farmlands. I didn't have any diversity around me in my town. To invite kids to meet other kids. Wow, their world looks so different. Wow, I like that about their world. But also, I really like this about my world. I think it just would be powerful to grow it in ways that we can share global perspectives.
Megan?
Yeah, it's like a perfect square.
Yeah.
But I don't see the square, I think, out of the box.
Megan, can I just say
with the stick.
Can I just say something to Megan? When you talk about perspectives, what I find very, very interesting is that when you go to court and you've got two witnesses and they see something in a totally different way, and they call that versions. You've got different versions of what people saw, depending on their memory of that particular event. Now, when you talk about perspectives with photos, someone might see something in that photo, whereas someone else might see something very different in that photo. And I think as a class exercise, it would be fascinating to have a series of photos you put up on a big screen, and then you get the kids to actually write down their perspective on what they saw and then compare those. Sorry, back to you.
Yeah. We've actually that was the first part. We were doing visual literacy. So we were looking at I'm trying to build their perspectives by showing previous photos from Nigeria, and I've done this in America, and Douglas has done this in Oxford, England. So I've been showing them pictures, and we're learning how to read the photograph, to look at good composition, that photos that tell stories, not just selfies. But that's what we do. Then we ask them to title, what would you call this photo? And then we tell them what the child actually called the photo and what they were trying to tell. But you're right, it's such a beautiful opportunity.
And that actually brings us to my next point. Teachers, programs, curriculums. Could we take hands with this project in schools? Stella, maybe you can share something.
Yeah.
You guys have the task at hand to do the photography. We call it photo club, where they need to actually go and I have challenged them to go and find something within topic where they can capture something live and give the captivation thereof. So Stella, just tell us a little bit more about the project and what you think the outcome would be to all the students listening tonight who needs to get that ball rolling on that project. We are waiting because the deadline is on the 31st of August. What do you think is the outtake, and do you think it's actually valid to bring this beautiful concept into a class environment with students being 14 to 15, even to 17 years old? And I would like to have both of yours, even if you didn't have that as your task from me. Do you think it could be something that we could implement in classrooms and classes? And do you think that a project such as what your mom is running currently could be something teachers could we can take hands and make it a really project? Would you guys feel that it could benefit you as students?
I think it would. First, I'm going to start with the topics that she gave us. So I only remember two. It was happiness is, and then you fill in the rest. And it was behind the scenes. So I was struggling with the behind the scenes because it's like not just the behind the scenes like a theater, for example. It's like the behind the scenes of yourself. So I think, first of all, the topics make you think, because I remember struggling so much with the last one. I was like, what is the behind the scenes of me even? So, do we know ourselves? So I think it firstly makes you think what you know about yourself and what you don't know about yourself and what you're learning about yourself.
Yeah.
But also like what my mom is doing. Her program is a bit different from what we are doing.
Yeah.
So hers is more dealing with your emotions, I would say, and learning your values. Yeah. So I think photography is such a good way to like kind of express yourself, because not a lot of people can say what they're feeling, and like they don't even know where to start.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just kind of gets bottled up, and then it all comes out sometime in anger or sadness.
Yeah.
So I think the photography, it really expresses yourself, and like without words even, so it's a bit easier.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, you said that students don't have, like, they don't know where to start in telling their story or, you know, all of those things. And I feel like that's so true. I'm actually doing an IPQ research program on how schools kill creativity. So, you know, if we have that space where students can actually start to look within themselves and look deep into their lives instead of just looking into their textbooks, then, you know, they unlock a part of themselves that they didn't know they had. And, you know, as teenagers, starting from young to 17 years old or 18 years old, your brain is still developing at a rapid, well, at a slower pace, but at a rapid pace nonetheless. So if you're able to unlock that part of you where you've never had to before, you really start to become a better person, and in becoming better people, you can create better communities, which I think is so important in high school, because especially in this day and age, you know, mental health is a huge topic. And if students don't have that space to express themselves and look within themselves, then sorry, my train of and then you know, then we can tackle the problem of depression and anxiety and all of those things. Yeah.
Correct. Well, listen, you just got yourself a sharpener. Because you're such a sharper. No, his sharp is so sharp. No, but Nico, actually bringing me to the next point. You were talking about self-discovery.
Yeah.
With Instagram and all the social media that kids get caught up on a daily basis, and not only children, not only young adults, but adults as well. What do you think that impact is on self-discovery, and how can we bring that back, making it kind of like a psychological versus a photographical issue, because the picture that we see is not the picture we would like to capture.
100%, yeah. Do you want to go first?
Both.
Well, I have something to say, but I don't know.
I think you both are under pressure.
So I think also because my mom made a rule that you can't take any selfies. And I think...
Oh, no. The rule was you can't post more than 2 selfies a week. Or in a row with each other.
Yeah. So I think...
Sorry, guys. We just...
So I think having that rule in place, it makes you go like deeper. Because it's not only like, picture. It's like, what does this mean? Like, does this even have importance to me? So I think it's going deeper. But also the whole Instagram thing. Instagram is just fake. Like, there's no easy way to put it. No matter what people put on there, even if they're like, oh, what a great day, what a W day, but they like, it doesn't really show like what you're actually experiencing. And
do you feel pressure?
It's like you always
like, oh, my life isn't
it's like fake.
But also like seeing a lot of celebrities and like body images and stuff like that, I think it messes with your mind and it makes you think you're less worthy, and like you want to look exactly like them, but you don't know what their life is like. So they could be living the same life as you, but you don't see that life. You only see what they want you to see, which is not always good.
So what therapeutic photography does is it flips the camera from selfie mode, which is what it typically is, right? And it flips the camera around to your environment, and it creates opportunities to attune to your environment. So now I have to tell stories about myself, but not by looking at myself. Already, that's a repositioning. So it attunes me to my environment. At our first session, we did a color hunt, and the kids had to pick a color, and they had to go out. They had, I think it was 10 minutes, and they had to get as many pictures of that color in 10 minutes that they could. And oh my word, these kids, like, they raced outside. When they came back, someone had gotten 58 pictures of something white. And I said to them, did you see anything you've never seen before? They're at school and they're boarding students, so they live at the school, and they saw all these things they had never noticed before. So it attunes us to our environment. Nature also is our teacher. We can see ourselves reflected, and we can see our life experiences reflected. You know, the decay, the growth, I mean, all those things are our teachers. But what it also does is it attunes us to ourself without looking at myself physically with my camera. I'm actually learning about myself, and the way I structure my programs is I know I'm not always going to be with the people I'm doing the programs. So my goal is to attune them to their existing supportive networks. And so for teenagers, not every child has a family or a family that's connected. But we try to say, okay, the program we're doing on values right now at Alma Mater. While you're home this weekend, ask your parents, what would you say are our top family values? And what are our cultural values? Because at school, we're making a top list of our own personal values. But I want them to attune to their aunties and uncles, their parents, whoever is in their supportive network, so that they leave the program more connected, which makes us more resilient.
Can I just make a observation here? I just want to go back to what Stella said when she said that you see all these beautiful people and you think you're not adequate and stuff like that. Let me just give you a word of advice, and that is that beauty is only skin deep. And one thing that I've learnt, and as I said earlier, I'm an old fart, is that the more plain someone looks, very often the more interesting and fascinating and engaging they are. And the trouble you often find with people that, well, I'm talking about women because I don't know about men, but beautiful women, is that, you know, they really don't have a perception on life. They're just so engaged in how they look that that's their life. And whereas people who look very plain and ordinary do have perceptions on life, and they're the ones who really have got their lives in the right place.
True.
I'm going with that.
And sometimes they have nothing else to talk about but themselves.
Exactly.
But anyway, on this point, if you can't be yourself, Stella, what's the point?
What's the point?
What did the one pencil say to the other? And you can't be yourself, what's the point? Now you always stay yourself in shortness.
They're never going to look at us.
I know.
But Scott, back to you. So last time I spoke to Megan, we had a lovely conversation. It was actually the first time that I've ever been to her house, and we came across this beautiful book called The Spaces Between. And we briefly just touched on a sentence which led to this whole experience of the book. And I would love to just say this. He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe.
Wow, yeah.
And, you know, observing my students, there's so much space between who we are, who we can be, and who the world wants us to be. And a lot of times in my class environment, I experience beautiful souls, and they might sit in front of you in class, but when you walk outside and you meet them on the school ground and they say, "Good morning, ma'am," or "Good morning, sir," "Good morning, ma'am," it's a whole different student. It's a whole different person. What space, what have happened between the space in my classroom versus leaving my classroom and being outside? What is the space between? And Megan, I would like you to just bring forward the space, because I've always tried it. It has triggered me. What is the space between, and why? Why would you feel there should be the space, or space needs to be allowed to be yourself? when the space is you. And you should be nothing more than yourself within the space that is given to you. Because if you can't be yourself 24/7, you're in the wrong space.
Yeah.
And you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
If it's not your tribe, it's not your vibe. Right? So
That's
teachers
a
can
good
do
one.
that. But tell us about what you think could be a narrowing of space and more the outcome of authenticity.
Yeah.
Bringing out your authenticity, your creative self.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
children in high school, according to Erik Erikson, a developmental theorist, they're in he says in each stage of life we have a developmental crisis that we're always trying to solve.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this age group is identity versus confusion.
Oh yeah.
They're forming their identity. It's already a natural part of what's happening in them. But now we've added, they're getting so many messages and there's so much disconnection.
Yeah.
We live at a fast pace. We don't have time to truly connect. We're so connected and yet we're so disconnected. And they're consuming at alarming rates messages that tell them who they are, what they should look like, what's valuable. I'm not valuable if I'm not wearing this shoe or having this fit or whatever. So one of the programs we did once was I had them do a science experiment. So it's a photography program, but it's also a lot of things because I believe in learning through play. And it has to be fun and it has to be joyful and it has to be meaningful. So I use Lego's characteristics for playful learning as my building blocks for all my programs. So this program, we did different absorption science experiments. So each table had a different one and they had to just observe what was happening. I didn't tell them, you're doing an absorption experiment, but they observed what was happening in their little experiment. For example, one was different glasses of colored water, and then tissue paper into one end in one and one in the other, and the tissue paper sucks up the water.
Oh
yeah. And then it actually the different colors, and it actually like merges the color. So we talked they had to tell me their observations, and then we talked about how what's in our water changes who we are, just like it changed that tissue paper. So their photo assignment was to photograph what's in your water. What are you soaking up? And so they did kind of a time evaluation. How much time do you spend on media? Some said the Bible was really important to them, but they actually never cracked it open in the week. And it challenged them to think, wow, I think this is important, but it's not in my water. It's not something I'm absorbing, but I think it's what we're absorbing changes us. Yeah. And so they might have, so I think for us as teachers, for us as adults, even for kids, to cultivate these spaces, the spaces in between, the safe spaces where we can show up with our authentic selves. I try to read up on trauma-informed practices because, I mean, what they say is if you don't feel safe physically or emotionally, you cannot learn. Yeah. Our brain is in fight mode. Like, I need to protect myself. I can't actually take in all this information. And so for my photography programs, building safety, where everyone is heard, where you physically feel safe, emotionally, you feel safe to share. The classroom should also be a safe place. Should be. And it isn't always. But and then we wonder why.
It's because passion lacks.
Yeah. And I mean, some teachers will say, but my job is to teach. And yes, that's true, but in the world that we live in, children experience so many harmful things that we need to see who our students are and how they're entering our classrooms.
Yeah.
And that's actually why I became a teacher. Yeah, because I've been bullied.
You know firsthand.
So maybe it takes power to, So it also brings us to the next point where people often say observe good faith and justice because towards all and all nations, because we need to cultivate peace and harmony with all. That's right. Otherwise, if harmony makes small things grow, but the lack thereof makes it decay. And it's very, very true. So
it's like the friendship force.
Friendship force. So it's also like I've spoken to a teacher the other day, and I said, well, we need to also understand that when we have a blurred vision or a distorted picture of our children, it leads to not having in-depth clarity and understanding and patience. We will lack patience, we will lack empathy, we will lack compassion, we will lack acceptance, we will lack clarity. It actually blocks our vision, to actually see behind the circumstances, the culture and the beliefs of those children. And for us to be actually there, present enough to bring forth your best interest and your heart and your dreams and cultivate it and grow it and nurture it. We need to have an understanding about your circumstances, your cultures and your beliefs. We need to understand how you perceive your world, how you see it. We need to be understanding about the factors that play a massive role in your lives, such as anxiety. We don't know your household environments. We don't know what you as a child innerly goes through. So we need to understand anxiety, anger, and abuse. We do in everyday life, because that's very real in today's life. And I believe that when you don't understand anxiety, it blinds vision. If you don't understand hunger, it distracts focus. If you don't understand abuse, it blocks love and affection. And this is what makes the difference between a teacher who's really passionate about teaching and someone that's just doing it for a job. And I think when we get this right in today's life, that's understanding anxiety, hunger, abuse, whatever you are challenged with on a daily basis, it will bring understanding. And when we understand, it brings forth clarity. It brings forth acceptance, more patience, empathy, compassion, and it closes the gaps. And it limitizes.
It creates connectedness.
Correct. And it lowers judgment.
Exactly.
It eliminates judgment and it brings peace.
You start to see your students as actual people.
Correct. So I would like to end off by just saying thank you to all of you who made this possible. Being on the show, so we can definitely take hands as teachers, students, and your program to make South Africa a better place. And I would always say, live in peace, walk in harmony, and breathe with awareness. And South Africa will be and globally worldwide a place. So Scott, thank you once again for having us up on the show. I think the time's up, I think.
No, time's not up, but we certainly can continue the discussion.
Great. Well, if there's any questions...
I've got one for Megan. Megan, you've got a couple of young kids, okay? So they've grown up with mobile phones. And, you got TikTok and things like that on the mobile phone. And that to me is a huge concern, because I actually have right now on the homepage of lovinglifetv.com, which is our platform. We do use YouTube just as a marketing tool. But the featured movie on there right now is about the fake world we live in. And it's actually a 2-part documentary, and it is really disturbing, because when you listen to this, you understand that 90% of what you think and believe is bullshit. Excuse my French, but it is. And it's basically an agenda being pushed by people who are literally in control of the world today. And what concerns me is that if you look at the kids who were born post 1994, they call them Generation Z, and not so nicely they call them snowflakes. And the reason they call them snowflakes is because they grew up with a mobile phone, and their perception of reality is completely shot because they see so much stuff. When I get on the train here in Brisbane and I go down, from where I am to the city, and I look around and everybody's got their head stuck in the phone and they're watching some kind of a little video. That's what everybody does today. How is that, Megan, damaging young kids?
I read a book called Stolen Focus. Fascinating book. A man was really disturbed by, I think it was his godson, just like how distracted he was. And so we took him on a trip, and the rule was you can't take your phone out when we go out during the day. Took him to Disney World or like some like pretty fantastic place, yeah. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't be away from his phone. And so he went on this kind of research tour around the world, interviewing people who were specialists in attention. So what it's done is it's shrunk our attention. The algorithms the algorithms don't encourage perspective taking because we're fed only what we're looking at.
Yeah.
It's providing disconnection between parent and child because we're just not. You can never keep up with what's out there, and the kids. I mean, there's just so much. Even as much as parents put controls and put limitations, there's always ways around it, and there's just so much disconnect around it. So I mean, what we've done as a family is we read TechWise Family, which helped us have some important conversations as a family. We don't allow double screening, so if you're watching a movie, watch the movie. Get off your phone. If you're on your phone, don't open up the iPad. Focus on one thing, because we can't focus. We can't. The book has just shocking statistics. People in a business, they did research. People in a business could only focus on a task for less than 3 minutes at a time.
Wow.
I think that's what it was. I'm terrible with numbers and facts, but it's shocking. It's not just kids; it's adults. But we also watch things together. There's something called Access, I think it's Access Parenting, but they have a video series. We talk often that I'm not telling you need to get off your phone or you need to set limits because I don't trust you or because you don't have enough self-control. These things are designed to be addictive. So we look at the nature of how these things are being developed. So it's not like my mom doesn't trust me. It's like these things are designed to suck us in.
Yeah.
We are a commodity. And so shifting that perspective from me versus you to, hey, let's look at what this is, how it's designed, then how do we have to be on the offensive and defensive. So we do call each other out, sometimes them us and sometimes us them. I'm really proud they've both deleted apps that they found. Like we talk sometimes, is there an app that you find it's just sucking you in right now and you just can't say no to it? On my phone, I tell my kids often if I'm going to Instagram or Facebook too quickly when I open my phone, I actually shift where they are on my phone. So I open and I'm like, oh, actually, it's not in the place it was. And I actually didn't need to open it.
But teachers are happy too when you pay attention and not being on your phone all the time.
But I find it's something we have to have conversations. And as parents, I mean, it's a fact that these are here to stay. They're not going to go away. And so how do we build healthy habits?
Exactly.
But also there was someone was throwing out a statistic about South Africa. Again, I'm not great with numbers actually. But the essence was the majority of South African kids only see the cell phone as entertainment, not as a learning tool, not as a connecting tool. And so what apps do we help our kids use that promote connection? So right now I'm teaching a course at University of Pretoria with information design students, and they're designing apps to promote connection between parent and child rather than be busy, go off, or even just this, fighting against each other. It's promoting them to come together, to connect to their environment and to each other. And so we need to be wise about what we do put on our phones and just be honest as well as parents, because as parents, we're part of the problem. We are also sucked in to these things. So for me to model to my kid, like, I just find right now, I constantly want to go to this app, and it's actually distracting me. I have to have that awareness for myself, but then also model to my kids. I also struggle, and then we problem solve together. But we have to stay connected. Otherwise, these things are very divisive and harmful.
Well, I guess the important thing to have is have a mission in life or have an objective in life, because that then gives you direction. But
yes,
I'd like to ask Stella and Nico their thoughts about that question I put to Megan. Stella, over to you first.
Okay. Wait, what was the question?
The question was about how...
Like you're in class.
Oh, I saw this video, funny enough. It was about this guy, and he was doing like an experiment kind of thing. And he went, I don't know where he went, but he went somewhere remote and he left all his devices. I think it was either for a month or 2 weeks.
Right.
And then he did like a test of how much he could focus before this and how much he could focus after. And he did some things with like his brain and like, I don't know what it was, but it was a test. And basically like the results were so much stronger after he didn't use his phone for how many days it was. So I think that just shows how much it has affected us, because like no one can, like, I think it's such a big thing now, like you have to have a phone to like thrive in the world, because like technology is getting so big, especially after COVID. Like it's not really easy to like thrive without having a device of some sort, because everyone communicates on that. So I think it's like, I think the phone is the problem, but also we're the problem, because we have to find out ways to like fix and like focus on how we can not be addicted to these.
Can I ask you a question, Stella?
Yeah.
So we waited. Our oldest got a phone when she was 16. Nico, you were 14, I think?
Yeah, something
and
like that.
you were 13. You got lucky because But what was it like to wait, and what advice would you have to parents about when to give a phone and what it's like, because I know you guys begged for a long time.
Yeah, we did.
I think after a while, because like towards the end, I don't think I begged, because towards the end I was like, I mean, I'm not really missing out on anything, but also people like my friends would be like, you don't have a phone? I'm like, no. So I think it's also like a shame culture kind of thing, and like a popular thing. But I think because I also know some people who've like given their kids phones at like age 6, age 5.
Oh no.
And I think that just it's wrong, because like I see them and they're like, Dad, I want my phone now, and like they can't focus without playing games, and like I look at them and I think, how do you have a childhood like this? Like, how do you focus?
But it's tempting. It's become a norm.
Because I was in grade 7.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I was in grade 7 when I got my phone, and like everyone had their phone at that point, and I was just entering, and I got it actually so I could take photos and communicate with my parents, because I was going to Cape Town for a school trip. So yeah, I got it for communication, and my mom was like, no TikTok, no YouTube, no Netflix.
Go mom.
And I was like, okay, I can't do anything about that, so I didn't get anything. And I think in the beginning, when I could just take photos and communicate, it was like not bad. Like I didn't feel a difference in my grade. But then as I got like Instagram, TikTok, all those things, it like kind of, it messes with you, and you realize that it's like hard to like let go,
Yeah.
So I think
That's addiction.
it's so much better. Even like it's better to give a device at an older age, but no matter what, it's always going to be a problem with like getting addicted to it. So I think it's just a fact.
So another guideline we found helpful is that we talk about how we need to, if the online spaces we're in, we need to contribute as much as, if not more, than we consume. So we talk about 1 hour on your phone. Isn't fair just to say, I've been on my phone for an hour. Were you scrolling for an hour and just consuming what I need to look like and be like? Or were you creating a video and adding music and editing? And so 1 hour can look different depending on what you do. So we talk about how if I'm going to be on Instagram, I have to be brave enough to also post. If I also want to see what people are posting. And so how do we contribute and not just consume? I think that's the thing. Nico, how would you answer?
I think that social media, at my age, a lot of people have had social media for a while now, and you can definitely see how it's affected people. I mean, everyone is so disconnected from reality. Like people don't know how to be present. They just, everything's about the future and about, there's a whole lot of pressure from outside things, outside celebrities, brands, all of those things. And that's all you see on social media, because that's what they want you to see. You don't really have a choice. It's kind of just shoved in your face. And I haven't had, the only social media I have right now is Pinterest, YouTube, and WhatsApp. But I haven't had major social media like Instagram and TikTok for about 5 months now.
It's been more than 5.
Yeah.
It's been 5 or 6
And
months.
what
something like
caused
that.
you to delete those things?
And yeah, I was gonna get to
Yeah.
that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And how does it affect your marks? That's
Yeah.
cool, because
Oh, yeah.
that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
please do.
I felt like whenever I was on social media and I was using it every day for hours, I was just consuming. I wouldn't really produce anything. I felt like I wasn't myself in a way. Like you kind of feel silenced. Like you can't really be yourself.
And drained? Does it
Yeah,
drain you?
it drains
Like, it does,
you.
yeah.
And I feel like a lot of kids my age, they have a desire for, everything's so shallow these days, but everyone has a desire for depth. You know, people want to have deep conversations, but they just don't know like
We're
how.
designed for
Because
connection.
exactly.
Do you think they turn to these things to fill a void?
Oh yeah, 100%. So it's
And
not.
numbing.
It's,
It does. It's just a numbing.
yeah, they don't understand that it's social media is the problem. They just
Yeah.
keep going back to it
Correct.
because it feels
They're
good.
fixing one problem and
Yeah,
another,
it's
right?
a quick dopamine hit.
Yeah.
You know,
Isn't
you're
it-
happy for a little bit.
Isn't it quite ironic that it's called social media when what
Yeah.
it's doing is destroying social skills?
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like as much as it is designed to addict us, I feel like it's also society that made it what it is, you know?
We keep,
yeah.
we
Exactly.
just
We-
keep feeding into it.
Yeah, we put it on a
Yeah.
pedestal,
Yeah.
you know?
For as long as it could.
Exactly.
We feel it will continue.
Yeah,
right?
so social media is like a god to society now. You know, everything's about Instagram. Everything's about how many likes you got, how many views you got, how many followers you have.
That made me sad once when a young person told me that they posted something, and obviously they liked what they posted, but they didn't get 100 likes within 5 minutes, so they deleted it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was like, oh, that's
Scott, please like us 100 times.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody watching, please like this video, or we'll delete it.
So getting back to how being on social media has affected me, in the first couple, like maybe 2 weeks, I really struggled.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any hobbies at the time. I just had social media. That's all I was.
Yes.
So after the second week, I was like, Nico, I talked to myself in this moment. I was like, Nico, you need to find something interesting about yourself. And so I did. So I started picking up books. I started picking up random instruments. I started learning languages. I started, doing these random things, but it was more worthwhile and edifying to my brain than just scrolling for 2 hours. So I feel like I am able to think more clearly. I have ADHD, but I feel like
Busy
being
minds.
yeah.
That's such a scroll.
But I feel like being off of social media has helped me to control that, I guess. Everybody says like you need to take pills for ADHD, but I feel like
No.
Exactly.
No.
I feel like if you take
No.
a pill for something, it's just gonna make you into something
Do you want
you're
to
not
take the
meant to
pill?
be.
Take the gospel.
Dude. So I feel like I'm able to think more, sit down for longer periods of time, and just be in the moment.
Yeah, for ADHD, right? Like
Yeah.
our minds are already busy and distractible.
Yeah.
Social media only makes that worse.
Yeah, and then I also feel like, one of the main reasons why teenagers have such a harsh environment right now is because I feel like a lot of, especially this generation, is lacking in faith. So I feel like being off of social media, I got away from the worldly things and I was able to focus on my religion, my morals, my beliefs, and then in that I was able to dwell more in the spirit and not dwell more in, worldly desires and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
Can I quickly say something?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I realized because I tried. So I deleted TikTok. I don't know. That one was kind of easy for me.
I'll buy you a clock. TikTok.
But Instagram, that was a lot harder. Like I tried, and then I was like, you know what? This is not even working. I'm just tempting myself more. So I'm just gonna get it, and then I'm gonna put time limits, and I'm gonna try and make it as easy as possible. But I realized that when I deleted it, like social media, it makes you so invested in other people's lives.
Yeah.
And I know like that's like you should be like interested in each other, right? But like I have FOMO, so that just made it a whole lot worse, like not seeing like their stories and whatnot. And like I felt like left out because I couldn't see what was going on, and everyone was like, oh, did you see this I posted? And I was like, no, because I don't have the app anymore. And they're like, why did you delete it? But yeah, I think it just makes everything a lot harder in your life.
Yeah.
Now, Stella, you raised a really interesting point where you sort of follow other people's lives. Now, those are people you're never going to meet. They're just a cyber friend, if I can put it that way. And while you're doing that, let's say on public transport, sitting right next to you is someone, let's say your age, who you don't even know. You don't even know their name. There they are sitting next to you, and that's where the social breakdown comes, because they're engrossed in their little phone, you're engrossed in yours, and if you didn't have those devices, you might be talking to each other in real time, in real life, and this is where I find it extraordinary when I get on public transport and everybody is sitting there just looking at their phone. There's no interaction. You go to a coffee club and there are two young people there sitting, having their coffee, and both of them are on their phones. They're not talking to each other.
Scott, I would also like to say something. It's like you entertain all of these people that you don't know, missing out on who you can know. You know, you're entertaining all these people,
But you don't entertain yourself.
but you don't entertain what you can have right here.
Yeah, people around you.
Sometimes we miss each other.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why are we doing that? This is a big question, because it's not
Because
natural.
you've got a void in yourself that you need to fill.
Yeah.
There's certain things in yourself that you didn't make peace with. You are insecure within yourself.
Yeah.
You lack something.
And we do crave connection.
Correct.
It's a false sense of
It's false. So you create who you are.
Yeah.
And it's addictive, so it keeps us
You
there.
crave who you are.
Now
It's true.
that brings me to a totally different cyber area that's going to be very big in the next few years, and it's called the metaverse. I don't know if you've heard of the metaverse, where you wear these sort of goggles. It's like going underwater, but you're actually looking at a completely different world through these goggles. And the metaverse has actually been going for over 20 years. There's a program called Second Life where you can become anything you want. You can become a dragon, you can become a pig, you can become Elle McPherson, you can be whoever you like, and you can wander around, you can buy stuff, do stuff, and you were escaping from life. So where we're going, and the mobile phone is only like just the interim measure, where we're going is a world where people are going to be wearing these goggles, and they'll be totally embedded in a fake world, completely fake, where they're going to be talking to other people who might be fake, and the beautiful woman you think you're looking at might be a grumpy old fart like me behind the computer. And this is how fake the whole thing is becoming. Isn't that a real concern?
It is a very big concern, but I think it's also because people didn't live right. Because they say you've got one life to live. If you live it right, once is enough, right? So I think it's like, they haven't been living right, so these glasses.
But it's like we're sleepwalking.
No, it's
right?
crazy.
Like we're living,
It's
but
insane.
we're not actually living it. But I think this is where we have to have like a multi-focus to actually change. Like in our families, we need to be examining our practices. In schools, we need to be talking about this. We need to build these spaces in between.
Megan, shouldn't the education system have a course on this? Shouldn't it actually have guidelines on phones and stuff like that with children? Because it doesn't.
If you look at the Child Rights Act, it talks about education should be preparing children for their future.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is critical for their future. And so if we're not, I mean, I know a school our children previously went to, they were so afraid of technology that even in grade 11, they were handwriting their essays because they didn't want them. But they're not preparing kids for the future. We can't be afraid of this, but we have to have critical conversations. So for example, how we use then our phones, how we use them drives how we use them. That sounds like it's just repeating itself. But for example, we have a practice at the New Year. We love South African. Compared to American Christmases, South African, the slow pace. We just love the slow pace at Christmas compared to the frantic pace in America at Christmas. So what we've done is we really utilize this space for reflection. And so we fill out these reflective papers, and then we make a paper and we put words that represent our year. So
that's cool.
Football, netball,
that's cool.
Surgery. Last year was surgery for me. And so what we do is we put these words, but then what we do we forget so many things, right? I mean, we had one year, 2018 was a really difficult year for our family, and I was a bit afraid actually to reflect that year because I thought it's just going to almost be traumatic. But what we do when we reflect, we open our phones.
Yeah.
And we scroll through our pictures. And when we were scrolling through the pictures, January, February, like, oh, actually, in the midst of so much pain, we had so much joy. We played cards. Oh, these people came over. So we had forgotten so many of those joyful moments. So using our phones as a prompt, but that has changed. So that practice has changed also now how we take pictures, because it's like, oh, I want to hang on to this at the end of the year, so I got to take a picture of this. So it's changed also now how we use our phones, because we know we're going to look back at it. But these things we need to be intentional. We need to have conversations. We need to ask our kids for ideas. They have great ideas. So let's use their energy and their risk taking and all of the good things, and use it to form how we use these.
100%.
But if we're not having conversations, we're going to fall into these fake worlds.
Yeah. Now, Megan, back in the 1990s when the internet first came out, the golden rule for families with young kids was not keep them off the internet, but have that computer in a public space. In other words, like the lounge. So that if they were doing something that was not acceptable, you could say, you can't do that. Now, the problem with the mobile phone is that kids, you think they've gone to sleep and they've gone to bed. If they've got their phone with them, who knows what they might be doing and who they might be interacting with. Now, do you think there should be some golden rules for parents when it comes to kids, depending on their age? What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely think you need time limits, and with the brain that's still developing, the younger the child, the more the parent has to set that structure.
Yeah, but let me put this one to you. After dinner, okay, you've had dinner, let's say at 6 p.m., the kids have to hand their mobile phones over to the parents, and the parents actually take custody of the mobile phones until the next morning when they go to breakfast. Because that way you're taking away the temptation to do what I've just been talking about.
Yeah, and we just as parents also have to just be okay with kids saying, but I'm missing out, but none of my friends, but I have to, I also heard, but everyone but me. And then there was actually that wasn't true. Kids do feel like they're the only ones. We have to be okay with being the bad guy.
Yeah.
If our kids are understanding, because now, us waiting, I wouldn't say they were annoying and they're begging for a phone. Nico definitely pushed more than Stella. Okay. but now they do thank us, saying thank you for waiting.
Yeah.
Like, I now see why you did that. And so as parents, we do need to we need to be okay if our children are upset about those things, because they can't understand why. They can't understand the nature of addiction. They can't understand how their brain isn't. We don't give children a license before a certain age, because their brain is not developed to deal with all you need to deal with when you're driving. And yet we give them phones when their brain isn't ready to drive that thing.
Well, I think a lot of that is especially with single parents, where they're just trying to get their kids to get engaged in something so that they can have a bit of peace. And I think that's one of the problems.
And it's tempting.
Yeah.
It's tempting.
I've got a question here from Stryker, who says, please ask the guests if they would ever consider visiting Asia, like China or North Korea. Okay, now, I'll put the question through all four of you. Melissa, let's start off with you.
Back to reality, back to identity. Yes, sure, Scott. Actually, one of my best friends, is coming. She's arriving in 5 days, and she's been living, currently, obviously for the past, I might speak under correction, but I think for the last 9 months, South Korea.
Oh.
Yeah. A lot of my friends have visited China. And I believe one of my two friends have stayed in Japan. So, and the stories that they have shared and just the culture that have accepted them with so much warmth and love and care. Although they couldn't understand the language, their washing machine broke and it was just water everywhere and she couldn't read. But, she phoned me and said, Melissa, I said, yes, is everything okay? She said, no, I went home in a cop van. I said, what did you do? She said, no. I said, are you, like, what happened? Why did you get arrested without me? I'm not supposed to be a best friend.
Without me.
No, but standing with you through thick and thin, what happened? You're there, I'm here. I can't assist. And she said, Melissa, you have no idea. I couldn't find my address. She was trying to look for help. And she went out looking for help and she couldn't find her way back. And everything was in English and they couldn't read it at the time. And one gentleman stopped and said that he was obviously part of the police force. He stopped and phoned her an Uber. And she went home. The police officer actually phoned her an Uber. Wow. So, any other way, being so welcomed by just a kind gesture and would make me feel so at home and welcomed that, and she said, Melissa, it's lovely. You should come and visit. So, I'm open for that. Because, friends of mine have visited, they've stayed, they've experienced, they've loved every minute of it. And not ever any complaint about it. It's about experience. It's about acceptance. It's about growth. It's about learning. It's about embracing. And if that is what is open to me, why not? Bring it on.
Megan.
The only place I've been to in Asia was Malaysia. One of our dearest friends we met in Nigeria actually was getting married, and he asked my husband to come officiate the wedding. Oh, it was such an amazing experience. I think I am so convicted that travel is the best education. Yeah. You learn about yourself. You see new kinds of beauty. You appreciate new things about where you came from because you've just experienced something different. I think it's amazing. I would go to Asia anywhere in a heartbeat. But my criteria for traveling is that I experience local people. So I don't like traveling, going to resorts or going to cruise. I don't want this fake little paradise. I want to actually experience the people and the food and what real life looks like. So I was traveling back from the States, and friends also that we met in Nigeria, now living in the Netherlands. And so I popped over on my layover. I took a day. And we went to the thrift shop to look for something for their new house. And for me, that's where you see the beauty of a place. It's just in everyday life. So if I have any invitations, I'd love to see your daily lives.
Now, Megan, you mentioned Nigeria, and I know you stayed there for some time. Now, Nigeria was one of the test cases for the central bank digital currency where they removed cash from society. And it caused chaos in Nigeria. Have you got friends over there who've talked about that at all?
Oh, yeah. There's been a lot of, Nigeria just in general right now is it's a very stressful place to be with the money. There were so many, so they changed their money as well. That was another issue. So they reprinted the currency. What's that?
It had an expiry date.
Yes, but they didn't print enough money.
Yeah.
And what happened was, all the businesses and people with access, they didn't deal with actual cash very much, but they were also able to just, to do the trade-in. But it was the vendors, the street vendors,
that suffered.
That suffered. The people at the bottom of society that didn't have the access, they didn't have the resources, and then they lost out, and they are the ones who depend on the cash. It was tragic. It was tragic. We have lots of friends in Nigeria. One recently, like they don't have a home, and so the one son's living with an auntie, another son's living with the soccer coach, the dad's living with a friend. They stored their things, and then that place was robbed, and so now they lost their possessions. And it's really tragic.
Yeah.
When we were living in Nigeria, Boko Haram was just starting their activity. It was the first suicide bombing, and we love Nigeria. Nigeria changed us as people. It made us better people.
Yeah.
We experienced so much belonging and joy, but it is a very difficult place to live.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it was announced today that Gauteng will go cashless as from the 1st of January because of all the CIT heists. Did you know that?
Oh, wow.
Right? None of us know about this.
That makes sense.
Well, that's what Marlena's just put up here.
Wow. I did not know that.
Wow. That will be interesting. Wow.
That's going to be hard.
Well, it's in the days.
But that was a big change coming from Nigeria to South Africa because we only used cash.
Yeah.
And you would carry quite a bundle.
We've got something to talk about.
Yeah.
Now, Stella, would you go to Asia, countries like China or North Korea?
North Korea is because I think whenever someone hears North Korea, they're like, oh, scary.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're not wrong from what we've seen. So I don't know, but I think every country has their challenges, and I think you just have to accept.
I just want to say that this is where perception comes in, because the leader of North Korea looks like a big, fat, cuddly teddy bear, but he's probably one of the most ruthless people on earth.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Anyway,
I love
back to
traveling.
you. So you love traveling?
And I love cultures, and I love learning languages. Yeah.
So yes.
So yes.
Hands down, yes. What do you love about it, Stella?
What, traveling?
Yeah.
I've always loved traveling. First of all, the airports, like the experience of I'm going on a plane, because we only go to America once every 2 years, and you don't really travel in planes a lot of the time. But I love traveling, and I just love seeing things, and it's so beautiful, and it's just so nice. But yeah.
Well, I've got to say that when I first started traveling, it was back in the early 1960s. And we used to fly from Dar es Salaam, that's where I was born, in Tanzania, to boarding school in South Africa. It was on a Fokker friendship, and it took 3 days. It took 3 days. But when you got on the plane, there was no inspection of your baggage. You just walked straight on. And it was so simple back then.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. Now, okay, back to Nico, over to you. Just regarding traveling to Asia, what are your thoughts with that?
Oh no, I would love it. I love, seeing different cultures, and I've always loved the culture, specifically Japan. I've always loved it, even though I've never been there and I haven't really seen much. But yeah, I would definitely love to
You're reading
go
a
and
book right now,
experience.
Explorer.
Oh yeah, I actually did just read a book. It's called Ikigai. It's the Japanese secret to a long and happy life.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
it's a really good book. I recommend.
I like the movie
it.
Ip Man. Have you watched the movie Ip Man?
Mhm.
I love that movie.
Now, if I can recommend a destination to visit in the Asia Pacific, it's the Fiji Islands.
Oh yeah,
The Fiji Islands are just beautiful,
That would be amazing.
Wow.
but the villages are just absolutely amazing. They are so friendly. They almost smother you with love. It's an amazing place to visit. Anyway, look, I'm going to. Oh, we got Kenyan Travel here. Hi, Kenyan. Good to meet you. Now. I'm going to wrap up this live stream. I'm going to just work my way through. Starting with you, Melissa. You see, I got it right this time. And
well, I can be Cinderella too. I just lost my shoe and my hair color.
Is there a message you like to give to everybody, Melissa?
Yes. Whether you Cinderella is Lamech tale, whether you a Cinderella in Korean style, whether you Cinderella in a Walt Disney style, whether you a Cinderella just around the world, whether you a glass slipper gold sandal Cinderella from a worldwide perspective, whether you a Cinderella Indian Cinderella, or whether you are a
now you must help
Zimbabwean Cinderella.
Oh my gosh.
Always remember, Cinderella remains Cinderella, but it's the authenticity, the realness that makes that Cinderella comes alive. So whatever you do in life, always be you. That is why you is in unique. So be you wherever you are, because you are enough. And don't let anybody change you ever. That's my message.
Fantastic.
On to Megan. Marvelous Megan. So stunning Stella.
Nice Nico.
I love your vibe. You might try, Nico.
So what's the question, Scott, here?
What message to the world?
Yeah, I would just say take time to think about truly who you are, what's contributed to who you are, and how do you want to show up in the world? What do you want to leave in the world? If we can ask ourselves these questions, it can be something huge, it can be something tiny, but it gives us purpose, and it gives us focus, and it's something that adds to living really valuable and meaningful lives. So take time, talk with people around you, to explore together. You don't have to do it in isolation. I think it's best not in isolation to talk about who are we? Who am I? Who are we?
Lanes.
Yeah.
Leave a legacy through your lanes.
Leave a legacy with your lips.
Capture your story and share it.
I just want to add on to what you said, Megan, and that is that if you're traveling or if you're sort of on a public transport or something like that, and there's an elderly person, just sitting there, just probably looking outside because they don't tend to use phones like the young people do, go and have a chat to them. Because, you find it so fascinating talking to someone who's, I'm talking about myself now, someone who's in their nearly 70 or in their late 50s or 60s, and talk to them about their lives, because you learn so much about living if you do that.
Everyone needs something to teach us.
That's
true.
Yeah.
This is actually a great prompt for them. They're going to see Grandpa and Grandma in December, so get your questions ready.
Stella, over to you.
Okay. I'm going to talk about the future. I think, especially now, I feel like there's so much pressure to be like, oh, what do you want to be when you're older? What do you want to do when you're older? And I think it's so much pressure to be like you have to have your life figured out now. Like, people ask me this, and I'm like, I'm just in grade 8. And I don't even know what I want to do. So I think just live in the present and don't focus too much on the future.
You stole my line.
it will figure itself out, and
Yeah.
Stella, before you pick up on Nico, I've got a word of advice to you, and I'm sure your mother's given this as well. Is if you're in a position where someone asks you something or says something that offends you, don't respond straight away. Just think about what they've said before you respond, because so often when you respond quickly, you exacerbate the situation. But if you come back with a response that basically defuses the situation, it's a much better way to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nico?
Stella kind of stole what I was gonna say, but I would probably say be present in the moment, be weird, ask good questions, have deep conversations, and most of all, be true to who you are.
And get rid of social media.
Yes! Yeah, that's it.
Is this a wrap?
Yes.
That's a wrap.
Cheese.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Cut.
Chocolate. No, Nutella. Yeah, this is it. Scott?
All right, guys. Guys and girls, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And yeah, it's been fun. We've had a very informal little chat, and yeah, it's been great. And just on going out, Melissa, this friendship situation. How do people ask about that? You know, this.
What about friendship force?
Yeah, but if they want to become involved?
Oh, how can they come involved?
Yeah.
Well, basically, Scott, they can visit www.friendshipforce.org.
Okay.
And every question that they have, Eileen and the team will assist them.
Okay, fantastic.
Go sign up. Yes, and we actually are thinking about obviously finding out more about them, and obviously, hopefully, join them.
Yeah.
And I believe the program is as such. We can host people. You can open your home for some of the people that can come in. It's almost like reminds me of that holiday swap. Like you stay in my holiday home and I stay. So if there's anybody out there, we would love to swap holiday homes. But it's almost like similar to that, where you open your heart, your mind, your soul, and or maybe you open your mind to be open-minded. You open your heart to be kind and generous, and you open up your actions to actually do and step out. But obviously, you know, people are scared. You know, we hear of everyday situations which is not as positive. So I think within that group, it's word of mouth, and that's how it grows. Because we also need to be cautious at times. But Friendship Force, I've had the opportunity to visit Cape Town with my other half this past weekend, and what a beautiful experience it was. And they have welcomed us, and just, you know, opening your hearts and your eyes to new vision, and your hearts to a new beat, and your mouth to a new tune. It was a lovely experience. And Scott, you were absolutely right. When you're going to go sit with someone you've never shared one word with, it's a beautiful book and a story you can pick up and you read. And it's a story you will keep in your heart forever. And that is how Friendship Force is for me. We've met some wonderful people. There was a lady from Belgium, Hilda. She has the same name as my mother. And she was just so amazing. And she would share her story. And it was lovely. And in just that 2 minutes, I've experienced a friendship just there that I haven't experienced with maybe friendships I've shared for 5 or 6 years. But just that difference, that culture, that unknown, that curiosity, that wanting to know more, share. It was beautiful. And this is also a message I would like to leave out there, Scott. Together with you, let's start opening our ears to a different story but our own. Because it's just so much more to share next time we tell one.
All right. Thank you very, very much, folk, and have a great evening.
Bye, everyone.
That's a wrap. Okay, guys, that was Melissa and Megan and Stella and Nico, and that was obviously a lovely informal chat, and I think we covered a lot of ground there, which was great. And Kenyon, good to have you along. You're from my part of the world. And yeah, do register on our lovinglivetv.com, where we have our main platform. All right, tonight, folk, I'm going to go out with, I think this song we haven't played for a long time, which is Hier Bly Ek Boer. And have a great evening, and don't forget, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, we will be having another live stream. And tomorrow night I've got a debate taking place between Colleen, who's on the side of the Palestinians and Hamas, and I've got Muzi and Kozi, who's supporting Israel, and he'll be giving their perspective on what's going on in Gaza at the moment. So it'll be a debate and a discussion about what's happening in the Middle East. All right, here goes Hier Bly Ek Boer. Have a great evening, everybody, and see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Johannesburg time.
Meer as 61,000 van ons voorvaders het op die grens vir ons gesterwe, sodat ons vry kan wees. Die is my land, die is my reg, hier is ek boer. Van stof is ek gemaak en sal ek terugkeer. Die Bybel is die woord waaruit ek leer, soos die grond op die aarde. Hier bly ek boer. So diep in die nacht sal die vyand kom, maar hier bly ek staan en draai nie om, want jy maak my nie bang nie. Hier bly ek boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voor. Hier bly ek boer. Soos blasem in die somer wat vreugde bring. My opa wat maniekiero kon sing, soos hy stap deur die lande. Hier was hy boer. My wortels lê diep in die grond geplant. Hy sien soos my pa, los ek vir jou die land, en jy hoef nie te vrees nie. Hier sal jy boer. My land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voor. Hier bly ek boer. Die sal kom. Sal kom, die 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 sal kom.